Was I wrong to stage a public spectacle? Tell me honestly, because when I saw the reflection in the glass and realized my own daughter-in-law was attempting to drug me, every bit of cool, corporate control I had spent a lifetime cultivating shattered. This isn't just a story about a tense family gathering. It's a terrifying tale about greed, betrayal, and the cold, surgical revenge I orchestrated against the one person who thought my wealth made me a target and my age made me stupid. You see, I am Arthur Vance. For 30 years, I built Vance Industries into a global powerhouse, and I learned long ago that the greatest threats often come wrapped in velvet and seated right across the dinner table. That night at my own home, my daughter-in-law, Clara, made a move that was meant to neutralize me and secure my fortune for her and my son, Mark. She failed. She failed because she didn't realize that the old man with the bad back was still the predator in the room, and I saw her coming a mile away. To understand the sheer audacity of her attempt and the icy precision of my retaliation, you need to know the players and the stakes. I am 72, recently widowed, and worth more money than I care to count. I have 2 children, my daughter, Elizabeth, who is a successful surgeon, fiercely independent, and utterly uninterested in my business or my wealth beyond ensuring I'm happy. And then there's my son, Mark. Mark is fine, he's smart enough, but he lacks the killer instinct and ambition required to run Vance Industries. He's always felt entitled to the CEO chair, despite his clear limitations. His wife, Clara, on the other hand, is all ambition. She's younger, stunningly beautiful, and views Mark as her ticket to a specific tax bracket. She is the engine driving his sense of entitlement, and since my wife's passing, she had become relentlessly manipulative, constantly pushing for Mark to be named my successor, and for me to take it easy. The stakes were immense. I hadn't yet formalized my succession plan. I had a complex trust that would keep the company whole and ensure my children were multimillionaires, but the controlling shares, the power, were still mine to allocate. Clara and Mark knew that if I lived too long, or worse, if I decided to sell the company outright, their guaranteed future would be at risk. I had been slowly considering stepping down, but Clara's increasingly obvious power plays had made me wary. This particular gathering was their annual attempt to butter me up. A small, intimate Sunday dinner at my penthouse apartment, just the 4 of us. Mark and Elizabeth were polite, but Clara was on high alert, overly attentive, overly sweet, and utterly suspicious. The evening started innocently enough. We were seated at my large, marble dining table, the city lights glittering 20 stories below. We were talking about Elizabeth's latest medical case, the wine, a rare, expensive Bordeaux that I had pulled from my cellar, was poured. I always use my favorite crystal stemware, which is exceptionally thin and highly reflective. My glass, a massive, delicate goblet, sat to my immediate right. We were about halfway through the first bottle when Elizabeth got an urgent call from the hospital. She apologized profusely and stepped away to the corner of the living room to take the call quietly. Mark, ever the dutiful son, immediately got up to check on the roast in the kitchen. That left Clara and me alone at the table, just for a moment. She was detailing some minor society gossip, but her eyes were darting nervously between me, the kitchen door, and Elizabeth's back. I knew something was coming. She leaned forward, talking about a charity event, and I watched her reflection in the highly polished dining table. Then, with a quick, practiced movement that was almost imperceptible, she pulled a tiny, silver vial from the cuff of her silk sleeve. I saw the flash in the mirror-like surface of the table. As she continued speaking, she shifted slightly, pretending to reach for the breadbasket, and her hand moved over my wine glass. In the split second it took for a few drops of clear liquid to fall into my deep red wine, I saw the malice, the complete lack of remorse, reflected clearly in the polished marble. My blood ran cold. It wasn't paranoia, it was a fact. She was drugging me, a slow-acting sedative, something stronger. Was this an attempt to compromise my judgment, or something far more sinister, perhaps designed to make my heart, already strained from years of stress, fail just a little early? I didn't panic. I am a man who has negotiated billion-dollar deals while a competitor was actively trying to bankrupt me. I went utterly still. My mind began racing, cataloging the details, the small vial, the practiced movement, the perfect timing while everyone was distracted. Clara, satisfied, finished her sentence, took a sip of her own wine, and returned the vial to her sleeve, all while maintaining a beatific smile. She had no idea I had seen everything. I realized I had only moments before Mark or Elizabeth returned, and I couldn't risk a confrontation without absolute, undeniable proof. I had to secure the evidence. My first thought was to empty the glass, but I needed the substance analyzed. My second thought was to confront her, but that would ruin my leverage. My third, and best, thought was based on a simple fact of physics. My crystal glass was identical to hers, and they were side by side on the large table. I smiled weakly at her, pushing my chair back slowly, feigning a need to stretch my old back. "Ah, Clara, my old bones," I murmured, "let me just reach that bread, I'm starving." As I moved, leaning slightly over the table, I executed a move I hadn't attempted since my younger days playing heist. Takes card games. A silent, nearly instantaneous switch. I used the slight lean of my body and the long sleeve of my dinner jacket to mask the movement. In the space of less than 1 second, I gently picked up my wine glass and swapped it with hers. Her drugged wine was now resting in front of her, and my untouched wine sat in front of me. I made a point of sighing heavily as I reached the bread basket, emphasizing my apparent physical difficulty to explain the slow movement. I sat down, my heart hammering a violent rhythm against my ribs, but my face remained a mask of geniality. She hadn't noticed. She couldn't have. Mark returned from the kitchen a minute later, apologizing for the delay. Elizabeth concluded her call and returned, the conversation flowing back to normal. So that's the situation I was in. I had the evidence, disguised in plain sight, sitting right in front of the perpetrator. Before I tell you what happened next, the slow, agonizing collapse of Clara's evening, and the ultimate, spectacular consequence I delivered to her and my son, I want you to pause right now and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have let her drink the wine? Would you have demanded an explanation immediately? Or would you have played the long game, waiting for the perfect moment to deliver your counter move? What would you have done? I played the long game. I picked up the wine glass in front of me, the one that was originally hers and now contained the clean Bordeaux, and took a slow, deliberate sip. Clara smiled, a genuine, relieved smile that chilled me to the bone. She thought I was neutralized. The predator was walking right into her trap. Mark began carving the roast, and Elizabeth described the complications of a surgery she was supervising. The moment of truth arrived 5 minutes into the main course. Clara reached for her wine, the wine that now contained the clear sedative, and took a large, confident gulp. I watched her over the rim of my own glass. For about 10 minutes, nothing happened. Then, the transformation began. Subtle at first, her voice, which had been bright and articulate, began to slur slightly. Her eyes, which had been sharp and calculating, became glazed. She started repeating herself. Mark looked at her with confusion. "Clara, are you all right?" he asked. She waved him off, giggling slightly, claiming she was just tired. But then she tried to cut the steak and missed the piece entirely, stabbing the marble table. The true climax occurred when she tried to stand up to use the restroom. She pushed her chair back, but her legs betrayed her immediately. She pitched forward, grabbing the edge of the table, sending a spray of water glasses and silver, where clattering to the expensive Persian rug. Mark rushed to her side, horrified, thinking she was having a medical emergency. Elizabeth, the surgeon, was instantly professional. "She's not coherent, Dad. Her pupils are dilated. She's been drugged or she's had a seizure." I remained seated, my face a carefully constructed mask of shock and concern. "Drugged?" I murmured, looking from Elizabeth to the wineglass in front of Clara, the one she had just drained. But who would do such a thing, and why? Mark was supporting Clara, who was babbling incoherently and sinking toward the floor. Elizabeth was dialing 911. Before the paramedics arrived, I leaned toward Mark, my voice low and cutting through the chaos. "Mark," I said, my voice heavy with controlled fury, "I suggest you check the sleeve of your wife's dinner dress. I believe the answer to who is resting right there." Mark, pale with confusion and fear, checked her sleeve. His eyes widened in horror as he found the tiny, empty silver vial. His mother's favorite crystal glass, now empty and containing the evidence, lay shattered nearby. The pieces clicked into place for Mark with terrifying speed. He looked at me, then at Clara's collapsing form, and his face crumbled. He realized, in one devastating moment, that his wife was not just ambitious. She was a criminal, and she had poisoned herself with the very weapon she intended to use on his father. The aftermath was brutal and swift. I didn't call the police because I didn't want the circus. I wanted control. The paramedics arrived, stabilized Clara, and administered an antidote. She spent the night in the hospital, the drugs flushed from her system, waking up to the icy reality of her exposure. I handled the consequences with the surgical precision of an executioner. The next morning, I called Mark and Clara to my office. Mark was a wreck, begging for mercy, claiming Clara must have been confused or stressed. Clara sat silently, her face a mask of cold, defiant hatred. She knew I had trapped her. I looked directly at her. "You try to drug me in my own home, at my own table, to compromise my judgment and steal my legacy. That is a crime of profound betrayal, Clara, and it is unforgivable." I then turned to Mark. "Your wife has committed an act that permanently disqualifies her from any association with the Vance name or Vance Industries. Effective immediately, Mark, you will file for divorce. You will execute a clean, immediate split. I have prepared the papers. They are ironclad. If you refuse, I will not only proceed with criminal charges against Clara, but I will also trigger a clause in my trust that disinherits you completely, leaving everything to Elizabeth's charities. You will walk away with nothing but the clothes on your back." Mark, faced with the choice between a manipulative, dangerous wife and hundreds of millions of dollars, chose the money. The divorce was finalized in a month. Clara received a small, court-mandated settlement, but no access to the Vance fortune, and certainly no CEO chair. She vanished from our lives, leaving behind only the wreckage of her ambition. For Mark, the punishment was more subtle, but far more enduring. He was forced to confront his own enabling weakness. He didn't lose his inheritance, but he lost his chance at the controlling power. I revised my trust immediately, naming Elizabeth's foundation as the primary beneficiary of the controlling shares, with Elizabeth serving as the foundation's CEO. Mark received an enormous, protected, non-voting block of shares, enough wealth to live like a king, but zero authority within the company. He would never sit in the CEO chair. I made sure he understood that his wife's entitlement, which he tacitly supported, cost him the one thing he coveted: control. The humiliation, for me, was worth the cost. I got my proof, I eliminated a threat, and I secured my legacy on my own terms. My daughter Elizabeth now runs the foundation, ensuring my wealth benefits society rather than lining the pockets of entitled children. I still host Sunday dinners, but now I watch the reflections in the crystal with a different, knowing calm. The old man wasn't stupid, he was just waiting. Like this video, if you think swapping the wine was a brilliant, strategic move, and I did the right thing by forcing the divorce. Subscribe for more stories of corporate betrayal and unexpected revenge, and share your final thoughts on whether Mark deserved to lose the CEO chair in the comments section. I'll see you all in the next story.